The story of Samson and Delilah. In the gentle hills of ancient Israel, where grapevines wound their way across sun-warmed slopes and olive trees whispered in the breeze, there lived a woman who had known the sadness of being unable to bear a child. Her prayers rose like morning mist to heaven, and one serene day, an angel appeared to her with news that would change not only her life, but the course of history. The angel spoke with the softness of dawn light, telling her she would bear a son. This child would be special, consecrated to God from the moment of his first breath. His hair would never know the touch of a razor, and he would begin the deliverance of Israel from the Philistines who ruled over the land. When the child was born, they named him Samson, and he grew like a strong young cedar, tall and mighty. His hair flowed long and free, a symbol of his sacred covenant with God. The Spirit of the Lord blessed him, filling him with strength that flowed like a mighty river through his body. Yet within his heart, like a quiet stream beneath the surface of powerful waters, ran a gentler nature that would one day lead him down unexpected paths. As Samson grew into manhood, his adventures began to spread across the land like tales carried on evening breezes. His strength became legendary, spoken of in hushed tones around flickering fires. He could perform feats that seemed impossible, yet his greatest challenge would not be in physical trials, but in matters of the heart. One day, while walking through the verdant valleys near Timnah, where the afternoon sun painted golden patterns through the leaves, Samson saw a young Philistine woman. Her beauty touched his heart like the first star appearing in the twilight sky. Despite his parents' gentle warnings, as soft as summer rain, about choosing a wife from among their own people, Samson was drawn to her like a flower turning toward the sun. On his way to visit the young woman, walking along paths dappled with sunlight filtering through ancient trees, a young lion emerged from the vineyards. With strength that flowed through him like spring waters, Samson overcame the lion as easily as one might part tall grass. Later, passing that same way, he found that bees had made their home in the lion's remains. Their golden honey sweet and pure like the promises of new love. From this experience, Samson created a riddle, sharing it at his wedding feast. Samson's eyes glinted with challenge as he spoke his riddle to the 30 Philistine guests. Out of the eater came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet. The prize was great. 30 fine linen garments and 30 changes of clothes would go to the victor. As days passed and the answer eluded them, the Philistines' pride turned to serpents in their hearts. For 7 days, her tears fell like autumn rain. "You must hate me," she wept, her words cutting deeper than any blade. "A riddle for my people, yet you keep its meaning from your own wife?" Behind her pleas lay darker shadows. The Philistines had whispered threats into her ears like poison. Solve the riddle, or watch her father's house burn with her inside. Until finally, Like a mighty tree yielding to the persistent stream, Samson revealed his secret. The lion he had slain, the honey he had found within its bones. No sooner had the words left his lips than she fled like a shadow at dawn to tell the Philistines. That evening, as the sun painted the sky in colors of fire, they came to Samson with gleaming eyes. What is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion? Their words dripped with triumph like honeycomb, each syllable a betrayal of his trust. His wife had given them the very secret she had torn from his heart with her tears. When he realized her betrayal, his rage blazed like wildfire. This was no gentle disagreement. Samson's vengeance carved a bloody path through Ashkelon like a storm through wheat fields, leaving 30 men dead, their garments stripped to pay his debt. He returned home alone, his heart as scorched as battlefield earth. The sweet wine of his wedding feast now turned to bitter gall, carrying within him the first seeds of understanding about trust and betrayal. Time passed like water flowing in a peaceful stream, and Samson found his heart drawn to another woman named Delilah. She lived in the valley of Sorek, where flowering vines climbed ancient stone walls, and the air was sweet with the scent of blooming jasmine. Her beauty was like the first light of dawn, but her heart held secrets deep as silent pools. The Philistine leaders came to her like shadows in the twilight, their whispers carrying promises of silver. They sought the secret of Samson's strength, offering wealth that gleamed like starlight on still waters. Delilah, her own heart perhaps torn like petals in the wind, agreed to discover what made Samson so powerful. In the quiet moments they shared together, where love and deception flowed like intertwined streams, Delilah began to ask Samson about the source of his strength. Her questions fell soft as evening dew, and at first, Samson answered with gentle misdirection, like a breeze playing among leaves. 3 times she asked, and 3 times he offered different answers. If he were bound with 7 fresh bowstrings, he said once, his strength would fade like twilight into night. When this proved false, he spoke of new ropes that had never been used, their fibers strong as his own resolve. Yet again, when she tried these, his strength remained like a mountain unmoved by gentle winds. The 3rd time, he mentioned weaving his hair into the fabric on her loom. But like the previous attempts, this too proved to be but whispers of truth. Each time Delilah tested these false secrets, she would call softly, telling him the Philistines were upon him. And each time, Samson would rise with his strength undiminished, like the sun emerging from behind passing clouds. Yet with every deception, with every gentle questioning, the bond between them grew more complex. Like vines weaving ever tighter around a strong tree. Day after day, her words fell upon him like soft rain on parched earth, wearing away at his resolve. Her questions flowed constant as a stream wearing smooth the roughest stone. Until finally, in a moment as delicate as dawn light touching the hills, Samson revealed the true secret of his strength. His words came forth like leaves falling in autumn, sharing how his uncut hair was the symbol of his covenant with God, the source of his remarkable power. In this tender moment of trust, like a flower opening its petals to morning light, Samson placed his heart and his strength into Delilah's keeping. As Samson slept, his head resting in Delilah's lap like a child seeking comfort, she called silently for someone to come. In the hushed stillness of that moment, where only the soft breath of night air stirred, 7 locks of his hair were cut away, falling like shadows onto the silent floor. With each strand that fell, his strength ebbed away like tide waters retreating from shore. This time, when Delilah whispered that the Philistines were upon him, Samson rose as before, but found his strength had departed like morning mist before the sun. The Philistines took him with ease now, their actions swift and sure as autumn winds stripping leaves from trees. They bound him, and, in an act that changed the light in his world to darkness, took his sight. In the depths of a prison in Gaza, where cool stone walls held both shadow and sorrow, Samson turned the great millstone day after day. Round and round he walked, like time itself circling endlessly. Yet in this darkness, in this peaceful solitude, something began to grow within him. Gentle as a seed taking root in fertile soil, his hair, symbol of his covenant with God, began to grow again. Each strand a quiet reminder of grace. As his hair lengthened like hope stretching toward light, his spirit strengthened too. In the quiet moments between the turning of the mill, Samson began to understand deeper truths about strength and weakness, pride and humility. Like water wearing away stone, his trials had carved new wisdom in his heart. One day, during a great festival where the Philistines gathered to celebrate in their temple, they called for Samson to be brought forth. They placed him between the central pillars, where he stood like a weathered tree that has endured many storms. The temple was filled with people, their voices rising like waves upon a shore, all gathered to witness the one who had once been the strongest among them. In that moment, standing between the pillars that held the temple aloft, Samson offered one last prayer. It rose like incense, quiet and sincere, asking not for vengeance, but for strength to fulfill his purpose one final time. His words floated up like leaves carried on a gentle breeze, seeking the God who had been with him from the beginning. With strength renewed, flowing through him like spring waters, breaking free of winter's ice, Samson pressed against the pillars. As the columns began to shift, like ancient trees swaying in a mighty wind, he understood that this would be his last act of strength. The temple fell with a sound like distant thunder, bringing an end to his story in a way that served his divine purpose. In the quiet years that followed, Samson's tale was told and retold, passed down like precious heirlooms from one generation to the next. They spoke of his strength, yes, but also of his humanity, his struggles, and his final redemption. Like stars appearing one by one in the evening sky, the deeper meanings of his story emerged over time. As we rest here in the gentle darkness, letting Samson's story settle in our hearts like seeds in fertile soil, we can draw forth wisdom for our own lives. We learn that strength comes in many forms, not just the physical power that Samson wielded like summer sunshine, but also the spiritual strength that grew in him like a garden in the darkness of his prison. We see how love can be both gentle as morning dew and powerful as ocean waves. How trust given freely must still be guarded like a precious flame in the wind. We understand that even in our moments of greatest weakness, when we feel as vulnerable as autumn leaves in a storm, we are never beyond the reach of divine grace. Perhaps most tenderly, we learn that our mistakes and trials, though they may seem as heavy as mountain stone, can shape us into something stronger and wiser. Like Samson in his darkness, we too can find new understanding in our challenges, letting them mold us like a potter's hand shaping clay. As you drift, remember that strength and weakness, love and betrayal, pride and humility all flow through life like streams joining a mighty river.